Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about one of the most shocking and defining moments of this war. The blast that echoed across the world, the destruction of the Crimea Bridge. This single event has not only reshaped the balance of the battlefield, but has also sent tremors through the political corridors of Moscow, Kiev, and beyond. What happened on that night was more than just an explosion. It was a statement, a warning, and a turning point in a conflict that shows no sign of slowing down. When the massive explosion tore through the Kerch Bridge, connecting Russia to the annexed Crimean Peninsula, it was not just steel and concrete that fell apart. It was also the symbol of Russia's control over Crimea. For years, the bridge stood as a proud emblem of Russian dominance, a personal project of Vladimir Putin himself. Built after the 2014 annexation, the bridge was meant to cement Russia's hold over Crimea and prove to the world that this territory was never going back. But in just a few moments, that illusion went up in flames. Reports of the explosion began surfacing just before dawn. Witnesses described a massive fireball lighting up the sky, followed by the sound of thunderous blasts that could be heard for miles. Images began circulating online within minutes, mangled steel burning vehicles, and the bridge engulfed in a thick plume of black smoke. Panic spread across Russian media, with officials scrambling to confirm what had happened and how such a major structure could be struck so devastatingly. The initial confusion quickly turned into shock. Russian authorities claimed a truck had exploded, possibly carrying explosives. Ukrainian sources, while not officially confirming, hinted at a coordinated strike, one that required precision, intelligence, and timing. The bridge's destruction was more than symbolic. It was strategic. The Kerch Bridge served as Russia's main supply artery for moving troops, fuel, and weapons to southern Ukraine. Taking it out was not just a psychological blow. It was a military masterstroke. For Ukraine, the message was clear. They were not just defending anymore. They were taking the fight directly to the heart of Russia's control network. This was a statement that nowhere, not even a bridge personally opened by Putin, was untouchable. The timing was perfect. As Russian forces struggled to hold the front lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia, this strike disrupted their logistics and morale. Soldiers on the ground suddenly found themselves cut off from vital supplies, and commanders faced a nightmare scenario of rerouting resources through longer, riskier paths. As dawn broke, the images of the destroyed bridge went viral across social media. Ukrainians celebrated online, sharing memes and videos calling the blast a birthday present for Putin, since the explosion coincidentally occurred on the Russian president's birthday. For Russia, however, the mood was grim. The Kremlin labeled it an act of terrorism, vowing retaliation. The Russian Defense Ministry immediately ordered waves of missile strikes across major Ukrainian cities in what many saw as revenge attacks. Kiev, Lviv, Dnipro, and even western Ukraine came under fire. The world watched as Russia's retaliation intensified, but the psychological damage was already done. The image of the Crimea Bridge burning became an instant symbol of Russia's vulnerability. For months, the Kremlin had painted an image of strength and control, but this attack shattered that illusion. The mighty bridge, once thought invincible, had crumbled before the eyes of the world. Military experts began analyzing how such a high-security target could have been hit. Some suggested the use of a waterborne drone packed with explosives. Others believed in a precision missile strike guided by intelligence from inside Crimea. Whatever the method, one thing was clear. It took months of planning, coordination, and courage. This wasn't an accident or a lucky hit. It was a calculated strike aimed at the very heart of Russia's logistics network. For Ukrainians, the destruction of the bridge represented more than a tactical success. It was a psychological victory, a reminder that they could strike deep, that Russia's infrastructure was not beyond their reach. It was a moment of pride, resilience, and renewed hope for a nation battered by months of war. The blast was a sign that Ukraine could still hit back hard, even when the odds seemed impossible. The reaction in Moscow was tense. Russian state television struggled to control the narrative, alternating between denial and anger. Officials announced that traffic would soon resume and that repairs were already underway. But videos from the scene told a different story: collapsed sections, charred remains of vehicles, and chaos on the water below. Engineers and emergency crews worked around the clock to assess the damage, while the Kremlin sought to portray the situation as under control. Yet the truth was evident. The bridge's destruction had cut off a critical link between Russia and Crimea, forcing Moscow to rely on vulnerable sea routes and alternative land corridors. Behind the scenes, this incident exposed the growing cracks in Russia's war effort. The overconfidence that marked the early stages of the invasion had been replaced by anxiety and disorganization. As Western intelligence confirmed, the bridge's damage significantly disrupted Russia's ability to supply its forces in southern Ukraine. Every truckload of ammunition, fuel, and rations now had to be rerouted, slowing operations and reducing combat efficiency. Internationally, the explosion captured headlines across every major news outlet. From Washington to London, from Berlin to Tokyo, the world analyzed the implication. The symbolism was undeniable. If Ukraine could strike such a high-profile target, what could come next? Would this embolden other nations to increase support for Kiev, or would it push Putin toward even more desperate measures? The tension reached new heights as speculation grew over how Russia might respond. In the days that followed, the bridge became a propaganda battlefield. Russian officials vowed reconstruction and promised swift justice for those responsible. Ukraine, maintaining its strategic ambiguity, continued to neither confirm nor deny involvement. Yet Ukrainian citizens and soldiers celebrated quietly, aware that this strike had changed the tempo of the war. It gave them momentum, morale, and international attention. The world began to see Ukraine not just as a nation under siege, but as one capable of bold and precise counterattacks. Satellite images released later showed the extent of the damage. One span of the bridge had completely collapsed into the sea, while another section remained structurally unsound. Repair crews worked feverishly under tight security, but experts warned that full restoration could take months, if not longer. During that time, Russia's ability to resupply its southern front would remain crippled, a reality that continued to haunt their military command. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials capitalized on the global attention. They used the incident to push for more Western aid, emphasizing how strategic strikes could weaken Russia's grip. Their message was simple: support us now, and we can end this war faster. The destruction of the bridge became both a tactical and diplomatic weapon. As days turned into weeks, the psychological impact of the blast persisted. Russian media tried to move on, but the footage of that fiery explosion remained etched in the minds of millions. For Ukrainians, it was proof of their strength. For Russians, it was a painful reminder that even their most fortified symbols could fall. For the rest of the world, it was a glimpse into how fragile this conflict had become, and how one strike could change everything. The bridge's destruction also exposed deeper vulnerabilities in Russia's infrastructure. If the Kerch Bridge could be hit, so could other critical supply lines. Analysts began discussing potential targets and the growing sophistication of Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities. Each day, new evidence surfaced that Ukraine's intelligence and technology, bolstered by Western support, were evolving rapidly. By the time Russia managed to reopen partial lanes of the bridge, the damage to its image had already been done. The blast had undermined confidence in Moscow's military protection and questioned the Kremlin's control over Crimea. The propaganda of invincibility had cracked wide open. Even as Russia declared the bridge repaired, the scars, both physical and psychological, remained. Months later, the memory of that night still resonates. The explosion that destroyed the Crimea Bridge will go down as one of the most significant moments of this war, not just for its scale, but for its message. It marked a shift in the power dynamics, a moment when Ukraine proved that it could strike where it hurt the most. It was a moment that reminded the world of the stakes of this conflict and the resilience of a nation fighting for its survival. And as this war continues, the image of the burning bridge stands as a symbol of defiance, courage, and transformation. The blast heard across the world wasn't just about destruction. It was about the cost of domination, the spirit of resistance, and the lengths to which a nation will go to reclaim its freedom. Ukraine sent a message that night, and the world heard it loud and clear.